While some investors are seeing this Cybertruck event as a potential halo truck for the company, there are still doubts about how large of an impact it can have and if it can boost Tesla's top line. Let's bring in RBC Capital Markets lead equity analyst, Global Autos, Tom Narayan, and the Verge Transportation Editor, Andrew Hawkins, to get their insights. Good to have both of you here. Tom, let's kick things off with you. Who is the audience? Who's going to buy the Cybertruck?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty specific niche customer base for sure, but this was never going to be a big volume product, right? So there were a lot of folks in 2019 that wanted this product. I suspect the conversion rate will probably be more like 20% or so, but still, if they could get something like 200 to 250,000 of these at maturity per year off of a base, the US SAR is what, 15, 16 million, right? So I think that's actually very doable, even if it's a niche customer base segment, a cool factor, so to speak. But even more than that, I think this is going to be a halo car, really, for differentiating the brand. Folks are even talking about how they went into showrooms yesterday and they saw ads for a Model 3 for only $29,000. So it's really being used to sell threes and Ys. That's really how we should look at the Cybertruck, not as its own thing. It's really a halo car designed to incite demand for threes and Ys. That's where most of the volumes are going to come from next year.
So then, Andrew, I want to bring you in here, because if the idea is perhaps to get some of these future Tesla customers in at a lower price point by looking at the 3 and sort of having the Cybertruck as more of an aspirational, look at the brand situation here, but we still don't know the price yet. So as we look at the demographics of the people who've put these $100 deposits down, do we know much about how they're going to, whether or not they can afford the Cybertruck when we still don't actually know how much it costs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't seen any demographic data on the people who are reservation holders at this time, but I think you can probably draw a lot of conclusions just based on assumptions that it's probably going to be a lot of early adopters, people who are turned on as opposed to turned off by the polarizing design of the Cybertruck. And I really agree with what everyone's been saying so far about how this is more of a halo car. I think Tesla's own employees have been describing it as sort of like a Lamborghini Countach more so than an F150 or a Silverado. And I think that sort of highlights a lot of kind of interesting elements about the Cybertruck, which is that perhaps it's kind of missed its moment, right? When it was first announced in 2019, there were no electric trucks on the market at that time. And so if Tesla had actually released the truck and started delivering it to customers soon after that event, they really could have captured this market. But now we've seen there's the F150 Lightning, there's a Rivian R1T, there's a Hummer truck, and there's more coming out. And by the time they actually get production running up at scale, we're going to see even more trucks on the market. So I think there's an argument to be made that Tesla kind of missed the moment here. And it's kind of a weird thing to have done, because trucks are just a huge business in the United States. They're huge volume, huge margin. This could have been really an opportunity for Tesla to dominate the EV truck market in the same way that it's dominated the EV passenger car market. And instead, we got this very polarizing niche car that's really going to only appeal, I think, to a small segment of really motivated Elon Musk fans, and not really much else beyond that.
Tom, 2 questions for you. Number 1, do you agree with Andrew? Has Tesla missed its moment, at least with the Cybertruck? But number 2, how do you think investors should be thinking about this car in terms of the revenue it's likely to drive within the company, not immediately, but at least in the medium long term?
Yeah, I mean, has it missed its moment? Very possibly. But I think folks who are in the Tesla stock, let's not forget, this is a stock that once was $1 trillion market capitalization. Now it's 700 billion. You're not going to get to these valuations on selling cars and trucks. Okay, so people are in this stock because of autonomy, right? Because of FSD, because of robotaxi. So whether or not you sell a truck now, this year, next couple of years, and it's profitable eventually, or cars for that matter, my valuation, only 10% of it is cars and trucks. 90% of it is autonomy. So while I do think it's important, right, that they sell Model 3s and Ys next year, maybe this can help. Kind of like the Dodge Viper helped Chrysler a decade ago, right, or decades ago. It's kind of like that. It reinvigorates the interest and energizes the brand. But, I look at this whole pivot that Tesla is doing to become a software company, kind of like what Netflix did when it pivoted from renting DVDs to streaming. Take a look at the stock that Netflix did after 2011 and then beyond that. I think Tesla's poised to pivot from selling cars and trucks to doing a completely different thing, which is becoming a tech and autonomy and software business. And I think that's really where investors kind of look at this. Cybertruck on its own, I think, is a niche product. It's never been designed to really be the main feature of this company. But certainly in the next couple of years, it could help reinvigorate the brand. Remember, these guys don't advertise. Their advertising is stuff like this, and it's Elon Musk, and it's the cult of personality and the cool factor that a new product like this brings. But ultimately, none of this is really going to matter. It's going to be all about autonomy and software and robotaxi and FSD.
And Tom, you raise an interesting point, because obviously Tesla doesn't advertise, but when you own X, when you have a platform where you can literally talk about your product constantly, it might not be traditional advertising, but it clearly is still advertising of sorts. But Andrew, I want to bring you in here because you talked about the Hummer, because I remember when Hummers came out, everyone was so excited. They're like, oh, there's nothing like this on the market. And then it became this eyesore because it was really an early adopter thing. And they tried with the H2 to sort of make it more palatable because of it, it was a gas guzzler. But what would be the backup plan? That if the Cybertruck comes out, what would be the alternative other than the existing Tesla models, you think?
Well, if you're out shopping for a truck, there's a few models that you can choose from. But yeah, I think that in terms of EVs, I think we've seen sort of broadly over the last few months, demand is sort of flattening. It's cooled off a little bit. We've seen a lot of the major OEMs pull back from some of their capital plans. Their big factory announcements are on pause. And EVs are just not selling as quickly as I think a lot of the industry assumed that they were going to. Tesla still is sitting pretty comfortably on around 60% of the market. I don't think that the Cybertruck is really going to move the needle too much in terms of how much market share that the company has been able to enjoy. And I think that we're actually going to see that start to continue to dwindle as we have over the last year or so as more models come on the road. And I think the real question is not whether or not the Cybertruck is going to change the Tesla story so much. It's how that next gen vehicle that Elon Musk and others have spoken about, that one that's $20,000 to $25,000, priced to be much more mass market, even than the Model 3 is at this time. That's the one that I think a lot of people are thinking about, especially in terms of what Tom was talking about with robo-taxis. Is that going to be the car that is going to then launch Tesla into this robo-taxi space that they've been talking about? I think that there's some skepticism around whether or not that FSD is actually mature and functional enough to be able to accommodate for that. But that I think is what a lot of people need to be watching for in the future, is this next gen vehicle that's more mass market, that was really going to help kickstart this adoption and transition wave into EVs in the future.
So let's talk a bit more about that, Andrew. I mean, you could argue that the slowdown right now we're seeing partly because the early adopters have already adopted that car. They've gotten the EVs they wanted. It is that next chapter that we're looking for. And yet when you look at the market, I mean, we're talking about pickup trucks here that are upwards $60,000, $70,000. What are the car makers? Who are the car makers you think are better positioned to capture that market where it looks like drivers are looking for a more affordable EV option? Right now, they're choosing the hybrid because it doesn't exist for them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interest around Hyundai and Kia, for example, have really kind of impressed a lot of people with their design, with the technology that they're coming out with, and the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6, and then the Kia EV6. And now the upcoming EV9, it's a 3-row SUV. That's going to be enormously popular in the United States. We have lots of demand for big SUVs in this country. And I think that there's been a lack of larger electrified 3-row SUVs. And I think Kia could really capitalize on that. I think Tesla came out with the Model X much earlier, and there was a lot of problems with that vehicle. The Falcon wing doors were polarizing. You're talking about polarizing design with the Cybertruck. We should have seen the writing on the wall with the Falcon wing doors on the Model 6. There have been a lot of problems with those doors. Customers have reported a lot of less satisfaction with how that vehicle turned out. And I think that there's still a big open market right there for 3-row SUVs in the electrified space. And I think in trucks also. I think if you have a truck that looks like a truck and not like the Cybertruck, you stand a pretty good chance in selling a lot of them. Truck buyers are very loyal. They're very brand loyal. So I think they're waiting a lot for that Ram truck to come out, maybe some from Jeep, for example. I think that those could really help spur a lot of interest in the EV space.
Indeed. A lot of people still wondering, if they do get a Cybertruck, where will they be able to get it fixed? I mean, this is a very, very unique car. So, a lot of things, and as well as sort of that vehicle, that driving range anxiety as well. Well, I'm sure we'll know more at 3 p.m. Eastern today. A big thank you to you both, RBC Capital Markets lead equity analyst, Global Autos Tom Narayan, and the Verge Transportation Editor, Andrew Hawkins. Thank you to you both.